Hey, this is Jamie with Useful Knowledge. Well, it's that time of year for making applesauce. I've got a half a bushel of Johnny Gold apples from one of our local orchards, and I'm going to be using just a little bit of cinnamon, and that's my only ingredients for making homemade applesauce. So if you'll stay tuned, I'm going to show you how to make it, and I'm going to show you how I can it. Okay, first we're going to peel these apples. Now I really don't get too fancy while I'm peeling the apples. I just peel them, so I'm going to show you what I do. I just start up top, and really I just go around it. Okay, as you can see, it took me every bit of about 30 seconds to peel this apple. Now all I'm going to do here is just cut chunks out of this apple. I don't get fancy with it, I just cut chunks out of it. And I get as far down to the core as I can, because you want to get as much off of each apple as you can. Our goal is to fill up our 2 pots. And these are, I think they're 7-quart pots, so that's our goal to fill these up. So we're going to be doing a lot of peeling, but it really doesn't take that long to get this done. So really, you're probably going to spend about a minute an apple if you look at it. So that one's about down to the core. So I'm just going to keep peeling and cutting them up like that until I get 2 pots full. I've got a little over 6 quarts right now. Right here is my 6-quart mark, so I've got a little over 6 quarts, and you can see I've got all my peelings and cores over here. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put this into one of my pots and cover it. And what that's going to do is just going to kind of get the air away from it. But if you leave these out too long in the air, they will turn brown, and you don't want to do that. So I'm going to put it in one of my pots, and I'm going to cover it. And then we're going to peel and cut up the rest of them, and we'll be ready to make applesauce. Okay, we're done cutting these up, and all total we got right at 12 quarts out of this half bushel. And you see that says a half bushel on the bag there. Full disclosure, my wife did come by and steal one, but we still got 12 quarts because this is almost 6 before I had right at 7 when I went to load up one of those pots. It was almost too much. So but I've got about 5 in here right now, so you can call it 12 quarts out of a half bushel of these Johnny Gold apples. Now some people are going to ask, why do I peel them? Because I don't like the peel in my applesauce while I'm making it. I really don't. Now if you want to do that, you want to run these through a food mill, whatever you want to do, by all means go ahead. But I like doing it like this because the peel's out, the core's out, I don't have to worry about anything but cooking these down to make applesauce. Okay, so we've added 2 cups of water into each one of these. So now we're just going to turn them on to a medium. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to simmer these apples down. So now you've worked really hard to get to this point, so you don't want to do anything too fast at this point. So we just want to do this slow. And remember, these are not potatoes, these are apples. So they're already kind of soft, so it's not going to take as long as you think to cook these down. Okay, I want to show you where I'm at. This has been turned on for about 15 minutes, and you can see the apples have already mushed down into the water, and obviously the apples are creating their own moisture as they cook down. So we're just going to keep letting this cook slowly. Okay, I want to show you where I'm at. The apples are really starting to mush up. So what I'm going to do now, and this has been about 35 minutes since I actually turned them on to start cooking them. I'm going to turn it to a low. I'm going to put a lid on it. Just a note, different types of apples will obviously cook differently. And sometimes the same apple but different years will cook differently. So you just have to watch it and just know to cook them slow, and don't worry about how long it takes. And obviously it's not very long because this has only been 35 minutes at this point. Okay, based on experience, this recipe usually gives me about 6 pint jars per pot. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. So that's what I've got here. I've got 6 pint jars per pot. I've got 2 pots obviously, so I've got 12 total pint jars in here. Now we're going to put these in the oven as our apples are simmering down. And these need to be in the oven at 250 degrees for 15 minutes. Okay, these apples have been simmering on low for about 20 minutes. As you can see, this is almost completely ready. Now I'm going to put the lid back on and we're going to let it go for about another 10 minutes. Okay, we've got our jars in the oven. We put those in the oven a few minutes ago at 250 degrees. So our apples have about 10 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my lids in some water right here and turn that on low. Now, as I stated before, from experience, I usually get about 6 pint jars out of this recipe. It may not quite be 6, could be more, but we're going to plan for 6 per pot. So I've got 12 lids in there at this moment. We're going to let those warm up. All right, let's check them. It's been about 10 more minutes. And these apples have just broken down into mush, just like what you want for applesauce. Now, what I like to do is I like to put about 1/4 of a teaspoon, and that's a small amount, of cinnamon. We're going to mix that up. Now, obviously, if you don't want to use the cinnamon, you don't have to. You can just do straight apples, that's fine. If you want to add sugar, you can add sugar. This is your applesauce, so whatever you'd like to do there at this point. But that's what I do. I don't add sugar, but I do add a little cinnamon. Now, at this point, these are completely done. I'm going to mash them up just a little bit more to finish these off. If you've got one of those immersion blenders, you can use that, but you really don't need it. Obviously, you can see these are breaking down to nothing. Man, that looks good and smells great. All right, we're going to put the lid back on it. Let's give it 5 more minutes, and I think it's going to be ready to can. Okay, I just got our jars out of the oven. They're at 250 degrees. Obviously, our apples are in here right at the boiling point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open kettle can these at this time. Now, if you want to water bath can them, feel free to water bath can them, whatever makes you happy. Open kettle canning is the predecessor to water bath canning, and it is an actual canning method. I learned open kettle canning as a child, and I've used it ever since for acidic items like apples and tomatoes, things like that, jellies. So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you what I do here. So the trick is, take your hot apples straight out of the pot into the jars quickly and get the lids on. Okay, so as I'm filling this up, something to understand, be careful with applesauce because you can run it over. Try to get it to the bottom of your canning funnel. You probably saw first, I almost got that one too full. And that's why you keep a spoon to kind of, you're going to have to mush some down in there. Applesauce is just a different animal when you're canning it. And we got 10.5. Sometimes I get 12, sometimes I don't. But I'm pretty happy with what I got here. So I got 10.5 pint jars of applesauce, and man, it smells awesome. Okay, what I'm going to do next, and these jars are super hot, but I'm going to wipe the very top of each jar off, just the rim. We're going to wipe that off, and this is with a wet paper towel. We're just making sure there's no applesauce on these rims that might mess with our seal. And if your hands are sensitive, you probably ought to wear some type of glove or something, but I've been doing this forever, it seems like, so my hands are pretty used to it. All right, so now we're going to take our lids out, and these are our lid. These are lids. We're going to dry them. We're going to place them on top of each jar. Alright, we got our lids on, now we're going to put our rings on. And like I said, you want to work quickly. These are still super hot. And that's the simple key to the open kettle canning method, is to work very quickly. We're going to take this half jar, and I'm just going to put a lid on it, put a band on it later over here. But next, we are going to tighten up the lids, and we're going to turn these over. We're going to leave them turned over for 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. We're just going to turn these over. And as they cool down, they will seal. You will hear them ping. Sometimes they won't ping. People ask me that all the time. They say, hey, mine didn't ping. Sometimes different lids will ping, sometimes they won't. Most of the time you'll hear them ping though. Okay, we got 10 full jars and 1.5 a jar to go in the refrigerator of applesauce for the year. And that came out of a 1/2 bushel of Johnny Gold apples. Okay, I'm going to use my pH meter to show you why you can open kettle can applesauce or water bath can it, whichever one you like to do. So I'm going to use the short jar from last night. That's just the jar that wasn't quite full from last night. And my meter's right now at 6.2. I had it in some water over here. It was about 6.8 a minute ago. So I'm just going to put it in, see where we get to. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but that is 3.9. So obviously it's well under the 4.5, which is the mark where you need to pressure can. So if you're uncertain about your apples, look them up, what they should be running, or simply buy you one of these pH meters. There's a lot of them online that you can buy. The digital ones are great. And this one is, it's called an Apera, and it's been awesome. I've had it for several years. But anyway, right now we're looking at 3.8. So this is why on this applesauce, and these are Johnny Gold apples, I do not have to pressure can. Okay, looks like we're going to settle that at 3.8. Okay, it's the next morning, and all 10 of our jars are perfectly sealed. That applesauce just looks great. It actually tastes great also. So we hope you gained some useful knowledge on how easy it is to make homemade applesauce. Thanks for watching. Good grief, that scared me to death.